Welcome back to another youth-centered podcast. Again, I want to thank everybody for participating in the six-part Savage Leadership Series we just wrapped up. And now we're back to some local flavor. And today I'm pretty excited to have an old friend, somebody that has been basically here longer than I've been here, and we've worked kind of side by side. And he's actually announced his retirement. He's only going to be here for about another month. I think he forgets that we kind of had a deal like 15 years ago that would go out around the same time. But he's jumping the gun a little bit early for me, and he'll be leaving at the end of June. So my guest today is the well-known, famous Fire Chief from North Andover, Bill McCarthy. Bill, thanks for coming on the Youth Centered podcast.
Well, Rick, I appreciate the invite, and I'm looking forward to it.
Awesome. So, Bill, what we do with all of our guests is I could read a little bit of a bio, which would be a little bit stale. I like to have our guests kind of give their own bio. So for maybe a minute or two, if you could kind of tell us, and you grew up in North Andover. You are North Andover. I mean, Bill McAvoy was always known as the mayor of North Andover, but you may be, along with Terry Holland, the two present mayors of North Andover. Talk a little bit about who Bill McCarthy is.
Well, obviously, I grew up here in North Andover my whole life. Went to Thompson School. I was a Thompson School Tiger. Went through the middle school, graduated to high school. After high school, I went to ULO, which is now UMass Lowell. Played a little basketball there. And in 1986, I married my wife, Pam. This is our 35th wedding anniversary this coming year.
And let's admit, you outkicked your coverage with Pam, by the way.
Well, I did well. So, met her right out of high school. We dated for about a year and a half, got engaged, and we're married. Ended up having two beautiful children, Kristen, who's now 32, and my son Tyler, who's now 28. Both of them are married. Kristen just had her second son a month ago. And she has a 3-year-old boy, Cameron. Her new son is Colson, and Tyler has a 10-month-old girl, Madeline. So that's very quickly where I am now. But growing up in North Andover has been great.
I wanted to touch a little bit about that. So you grew up, and you have a friend group that we're actually going to talk about that I always get a kick out of. I'll never forget the father-son camping weekend every summer with your crew. But your group has kind of stayed connected over the years. What was it like growing up? I don't think people realize that in the 70s, early 80s, North Andover was very different in terms of how many people lived here. I mean, there were areas that are huge developments now that were just woods when you were growing up here. What was it like growing up in the North Andover area in the late 70s, early 80s?
So I grew up downtown. I grew up on Linden Ave, which is off Mass Ave. I grew up in between two florists, Oates' florist and Seymour's florist. I actually worked there, making 50 cents an hour back when I was 10, 11 years old. Spent a lot of time hanging out at the playgrounds. Back then there was neighborhood playgrounds. I went to Carl Thomas and spent most of my summers down there. In the neighborhood, we were outdoors until we were called in for dinner. And grew up with a lot of different families in my neighborhood. Played a lot of different, it was either street hockey, wiffle ball games, a game called cross country, where you used to chase people. It was like a large tag game, but it was through different neighborhoods. So we were always outdoors. We were going to either my pool, we grew up with a pool, or we'd go to our friend's pool. So we spent all our time outside. And summers seemed to be forever. They would last forever. Developed some great friends that I'm still friendly with now. But it was a lot of fun. Town was a lot smaller then. Really didn't know about Out Country.
Yeah. I mean, the youth center area was considered the start of Out Country.
Right.
And now it's kind of like the middle of town.
Right. It's like the middle of town now. The town. But again, I spent all my time on my bike, downtown. For summer vacations, my parents would take us camping. The whole family we'd all go camping in a pop-up tent for a couple weeks, and it was very it was enjoyable, very simple back then, but we had a ball growing up here in North Andover.
Absolutely. So one of the things I do want to touch on is, you lightly said it, but you were a really good athlete at North Andover High School. I obviously know about your basketball exploits, and you did play for a little bit at U Lowell, but you were also, I think, the football quarterback and played a number of different sports. What was it like playing sports for North Andover Knights back in the day?
A lot of traditions, same as it is now, but I remember growing up, playing in the Booster Club basketball, and back then Coach Licari, who was my high school coach, had tremendous teams, and I remember going to all the state championship games when I was younger and couldn't wait to get up to the high school and play for Coach Licari. So grew up playing football, baseball, and basketball in the Booster Club. And in high school, great tradition, football I enjoyed tremendously. I had Coach Kavanaugh, and we had a good group of athletes in our class. Some great running backs and receivers, and got to play with a lot of my friends that I still hang out with now. Basketball we did well, ended up into the second round of the state championship. Had a pretty good record of 20-3, one of the stronger records. We didn't ultimately get to the finals, but it was a lot of fun, and enjoyed it.
Yeah, you went off to U Lowell, and as you said, played basketball for a little bit. But as you're in your college career and working summers back here in North Andover, what were some of your career goals when you were at your U Lowell? Because we're going to touch on this a little bit. That I think you've worked for a number of departments. I think you worked for DPW. I think you worked. You were thinking about possibly the police department, and then obviously you had an illustrious career with the fire department. So go back to like your early 20s when you were still in college. What were your career goals back then?
Well, I knew growing up, even in high school, I knew I was going to be something in public safety. I had an interest in police, fire department. I used to help my father, who at nighttime was the custodian for the town buildings. And it was right next door to the fire department. So I met a lot of the firefighters growing up. So I knew that was something I was interested in. I knew I was interested in law enforcement. Growing up, my father told me, take all these exams. Take the police, take the state police, take the fire. The worst thing you can do is you don't get asked, or if you are asked, you either accept it or you don't. So I knew, even in college, and I went to college, took criminal justice. So I have a degree in criminal justice, but I also have a degree in fire science. But I knew I was going to be in one of those positions. Well, I wanted to be. And went to college, graduated there in '85 with a degree in criminal justice. Got married in '86. 6 months later, I got a call from the fire department. Went in, did an interview, and I was hired. So I started working for the fire department in 1986. A couple years later, I did get a call from the police department, and I took a reserve position with the North Andover Police Department. So I actually, during that year, was working my fire schedule, and on my days off, I went and worked police.
Was part of that you weren't sure which direction?
Yeah, I wasn't sure. I was still at that point. I was still young, and the North Andover Police Department opportunity came up, so I wanted to try it. Did it for 6 months, and I remember sitting down with Chief Dolan, who was my chief at the time, and said, Chief, I'm going to be staying here. I just think I have it pretty good here at the fire department. I think I enjoy it more, and that's when he told me. He says, you really should start getting into the books, thinking about moving up, getting promoted to lieutenant. So I did. At that point, I started, studying for my lieutenant's exam, and a few years later, an opening came up, and that's when I was promoted to lieutenant.
So you started out as a firefighter, right. And then the plan, and obviously we remember Chief Dolan. Obviously, been retired for a while now, but he must have saw something in you that he really wanted to, promote. That hey, if you want to. Move in the department here, you got to do this stuff. And how many years was it on the force before you became a lieutenant?
So it was about 8 years. I actually did a couple years of acting lieutenant. We had a couple injuries, so I filled in as an acting lieutenant for about 2 years. And then shortly after that, I think just a couple weeks, a permanent position came up. So I did the lieutenant's position for 20 years, up until 2015. 2015, I was promoted to the deputy fire chief.
Right.
And then 2016, Chief Melnikas retired, and I was chosen as the fire chief in 2016.
Nice, and we're going to get into that part of it. Let me go back a little bit. Obviously I know you real well, and I think I know some of the answers to this, but we always like to ask about mentors. And when you were a young kid, and knowing your mom the way I know your mother, I never met your father, obviously, so we always know that families have a big influence on it. But who would be some of the mentors that you had growing up as you started your professional career, whether it be teachers or people in town? I know Bill McAvoy was important for you, but who were some of those mentors?
Well, I'd have to say, starting right out, that I'd have to look at my father first. My father passed away at 55, but his whole life worked 2 jobs. He was all about family. Tremendous work ethic, and I think that's where I have it, and I think my 2 children show that. My father went to work, and then he would come home at night and he'd have to go to a second job, and I just look at that, what he did for the family, to be able to provide for 6 of us. We had I had 2 other brothers. One of my brothers passed, but 3 sisters, so it was a big family. But my father and my mother have always worked tremendously hard for us. So, those are the people I look up to first. But mentors in town, obviously you had mentioned Bill McAvoy. I met him very early in my life through the recreation department. His son Billy played basketball with me in the one of the Booster Club basketball teams. So we were close. I would hang out at Billy's house. I remember being a playground instructor under Bill McAvoy. That was one of my town jobs.
Yeah.
And but obviously Joe Walsh. I think a lot of people know of Joe Walsh. Same thing. He would after baseball games during the summer, he would normally be umpiring down at the games. When those games ended, we'd end up going down the Glenwood Street. We played football in the street. He'd be the quarterback, and Joe's children and the neighborhood kids, and we'd have games. But again, I worked a little bit for the North Andover Housing Authority as high school. During snowstorms, they would have me come in and help shovel and. And Joe Walsh ran the North Andover Housing Authority. So I was very, very tight with Bill McAvoy, Joe Walsh. But I saw what they did for a lot of people in town. I think there's so much that they both did that people don't even realize. And again, it's going to be similar to someone like Terry Holland. Mm-hmm. People just don't realize what an impact and what they do.
I think a lot of our listeners, especially people new to the town, probably don't know the history of Joe Walsh or Bill McAvoy. Obviously, McAvoy Field is named after Bill McAvoy. When we redid that field, it was appropriate to name it after him. People knew it before as Chadwick Field. And then obviously the football stadium with Joe Walsh. And, I came in when Bill McAvoy was winding down, but Joe Walsh to this day is one of my greatest mentors and what he's done. And I think you said it great. Those are 2 people that were very selfless, that gave to this community, and that North Andover, they bled North Andover. And that's when I think of guys like you and Terry Holland, they're definitely people that bleed North Andover.
A good story about Joe Walsh. So Sunday evenings, skating at Brook School.
Yeah.
Again, Bill McAvoy would have a way of getting people to help out. So both Joe Walsh and myself would be up at skating on Sunday night. We were skate guards. Neither one of us could skate. I remember being out on the ice and we're in our shoes, but we're skate guards.
Right.
So they gave us whistles, so if we had to get anyone's attention, we didn't have to skate after that. We would just call them over. But I always thought that was comical that we were skate guards, but neither one of us could skate.
Yeah, so as you know, I've taken over most of what Bill McAvoy had left when obviously he retired, then passed. So Brook Skating on Sunday nights is one of my programs now, and I had heard that story. So one of my requirements is the kids that are skate guards need to know how to skate, and we're happy to say that we do give them whistles, but they do know how to skate.
Yeah.
So let me ask you something. How has the town changed since you were a kid? You talked about that. Obviously, we have more people in town. There's been more development, more what people affectionately call out country. But other ways that the town has changed since you were a kid, because you have a very clear vision of what this town was, because you really never left.
Right. Well, obviously the size of it. It's always been, almost 27 square miles, but it's been built up so much. And I think you see children today, they're not necessarily just in their neighborhood. They're being brought different places because their friends are living everywhere now.
Right.
Back when I grew up, you were basically in your neighborhood. So that's a big change. The youth center, we didn't have it.
Right.
It's one of great things for today's youth to be able to. We had the area playgrounds. It was great.
Yep.
But again, that was during the summer. So there's so many, I think, opportunities for kids today. A lot more programs. But I enjoyed growing up in the town here. We had a lot of fun. Spent a lot of time outdoors. I don't know if there's as much of that. Not as much. Everything's organized today, back then we'd make up our own games and things like that. But still a great place to raise a family, and I think the town is just a great place to live. But definitely the size and what's in town now. So.
Right. Obviously, with you being a fireman, with you growing up in this town and your love for sports, it was only natural at some point in time you were going to be actively involved with the Boosters Club, and you were everything from a coach to an organizer to a past president of the Boosters Club. How did you, once you started raising a family, why was it important for you to give back in terms of youth sports? And talk a little bit about your career with the Boosters Club.
So even before I had my own children,
Saturday morning basketball.
Yeah. So it started out here, which was the
old
old Red
Barn.
Barn. Yeah. We started out, it was an afternoon program. And we would have hoops brought in from Merrimack College. And we would do floor hockey, we would do basketball, but we really saw something with the basketball. So we ended up starting the Saturday morning basketball program. And the first year was at the North Andover the community center. Then we needed more space, so we ended up getting the Franklin School. We needed more space. We ended up getting the Sergeant School. So I would spend at one point it was up to 8 hours every Saturday running the basketball program. It started at 8 o'clock in the morning would be our first session. We started out with one second grade group, one third grade, one fourth, and then we went to 2 second grade boys, 2 second grade girls, 2 thirds of each class, and 2 fourths each class. Then you and I, once we had the youth center, we brought the 4th grade basketball.
We were the architects of that. And for people who don't know, Tyler and Michael, my son, were in the same grade. So I remember us talking like, how do we take that 4th grade out of more of a skill training and more have leagues? So in 2000, when we opened the building, you came to me with this idea, which I thought was great. We went side hoop to side hoop, 2 games going on at one time with the 4th grade boys and girls. And it's, to this day, it's continued. Prior to the pandemic, it was a major part of what we did here.
Right, and I think we had 8 that first year. We had 8 teams, I believe.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was a lot of fun. Got into the Booster Club as a delegate. I remember being out to dinner with my wife at the Loft. And Timmy Pivus, who was the president at the time, Terry Holland, who was the vice president, were out having dinner. And they asked me to come in and take one of the vice president's job. And I said, I'm not sure, with the fire department, my schedule. And, oh, don't worry about it, it's not a lot. And they had a plan. They had a plan to eventually have me become the president of Booster Club. I loved it. It was great being part of it. I've met a great group of people through the Booster Club. I was the basketball commissioner for 6 or 8 years, many years. So I mean, I've had a lot of fun with that. It was it's just something I've enjoyed doing. Again, I did it before I had children, and then once I had my own children, they were involved. And
you continued after both Kristen and Tyra.
Yeah, we were still in. And at some point, I did leave the Booster Club, and it just again got a little bit too much for me. Yeah. But spent a lot of time in it and enjoyed it.
Yeah. So we can't talk about that without bringing up, and this is a question that was.
I think this was one of the questions that was off.
Utah Jazz, George Niang, Michael Gorman, and my fellow Methuen kids I coach, they would like to ask this question. How is it that your all-time coaching career against Rick Gorman is 2 wins and 16 losses? Can you touch on that at all?
Did we actually play that many games?
We did.
So I remember your team really developed as they got older.
Yeah.
We were very competitive.
The early years
we were very competitive. And I think even here, when we used to do some games here at the youth center, we usually North Andover was usually a few points ahead. but I remember the first year of the league that we had started, the Merrimack Valley League.
Yeah.
It was North Andover and Methuen in the finals. North Andover won the first game.
Yes,
if you remember.
You did.
And but for some reason, it was the best of 3.
Yeah.
And I think the year after that, it went to one game. So for that, and I don't know if you told me after the loss if it was, oh, by the way, it's a best of 3 series. I'm not sure. But anyways, yeah. I mean, obviously, we had a good team. Great group of. Players here.
Johnny Bird, Mark Hansen, Sean Herb, Tyler
McManus, Sean McManus. Brendan McManus. Yeah, a great group of people.
And obviously, I had a future NBA pro.
You did.
I had 4 kids that ended up playing college basketball, but I'm still sticking that it was all coaching.
Yeah.
It was all coaching.
Well, I remember in 5th, 6th grade, they were generally about the same size. By 8th grade,
I had Jimmy Zenovich and George.
Yeah, you had some very, very tall, big players. So.
Well, I'm sure George and Michael and my rest of my Bethune guys are going to enjoy listening to this.
Well, I mean, and again, I know that they always enjoyed the cookies that my mother would bring to the game.
And I want to talk about your mother. So your mother, for people that don't know Billy's mother, she is an amazing woman. I was telling Billy offline that when I told my son that I was going to be doing this, he asked about Mrs. McCarthy, because she was just a major part. She came to every game, and she was a wise ass. That's the only thing I'll ever say. She always had the digs from me and everything else. But I look back at those times, and we had great parent support in Methuen, and you had great parent support in North Andover. But your mother was the queen of all of it. Like the Methuen parents loved her, the North Andover parents. She was a big part of it. But the biggest thing I took from her was her love for you, her grandson, and just basically North Andover in general. And she really took things in stride. Like, she came up with a reason that the reason we won so much was I paid the refs or something like that. She always had something to say. But like, how is your mom doing, and why was your mother so involved with that?
She's doing well. I mean, she has a difficult time getting around. She's on a walk, but she still lives at home with my older sister Claire. So I try to get there almost every day for lunch. She's just down from the fire station, so I like to try and eat there if I can. When I do retire next month, I plan on being able to get her out more. But she still enjoys, watching sports. Back watching the Red Sox, she loved. She was a little upset that Tom Brady has left the Patriots, but still has always loved the watching sports. Both my mother and father, I got to be honest, I don't think they ever missed one of my games, right? Yeah. Even in college. We went to Bridgeport, Connecticut. It was a blizzard. There was nobody in the stands. My mother and father were there, and they drove to Connecticut. So they were always at the games, and she again made all of Tyler's games growing up, Kristen's games growing up, and she's having a ball with the grandchildren, absolute ball. I go over there and she can't stop talking about them. So she does say all the time that they make me feel 20 years younger. So she's doing well, but she did, when I told her I was going to be meeting with you, she says, well, tell him I'm not done with him.
Well, we miss her. She was a big part of everything. I have fond memories of her, and obviously she'll be listening to this, but obviously send our best to your mother. We talked a little bit about this. I joked that you outkicked your coverage marrying Pam. I got to know Pam over the last 30 years, and she's an amazing woman, amazing wife, amazing mother. Talk a little bit about the importance of Pam in your life. You guys have been married how many years now?
This will be 35 this year. So she probably doesn't like this story, but I went to ULO, was playing basketball. My sophomore year is when I met Pam, and I decided at that point I wanted to go home, commute to college, because again, I fell in love, and I wanted to spend some time with her. It was tough being away at school and stuff, and but it's been 35 years. We do everything together. People, even the town manager, makes a joke about she has seen Pam and I grocery shopping together. We do, we go, and that's a big joke now at some of the department head meetings. Like, you go in the market basket tonight. But no, we just we have the same interests. We enjoy being with our children, our grandchildren. We're all about family. Pam works at the Kitchener School.
And she's going to still work a little while longer?
Yeah, I mean, she's decided that she's going to at least go back next year, and then at that point she can decide what she wants to do. I mean, I don't know if she wants to spend all her time with me, but I'm
willing to bet she doesn't. So she needs this year to see if she can handle that.
Yeah.
Let's talk a little bit about your kids. So you mentioned Ty and Kristen. I've had the fortune to have both of them grow up at the youth center with me. And both of them would work for me during the school year, but in the summertime, both of them ended up being site coordinators out here at Drummond site. And again, the playground programs that we do the last 25 years are different than the playgrounds. It's more of a town-wide playground program now with different sites. But obviously they've become very successful. You talked about them having kids or whatever, but great kids. And it's been great for me to kind of watch their evolvement from being little kids to adults. Talk a little bit about your kids.
Well, I think a lot of why they're so successful, what they do today. Kristen's a teacher in Haverhill. She's now teaching 6th grade. She started out teaching first, did some 3rd grade. And then Tyler is the assistant director of admissions at Merrimack College. And they both, Tyler graduated from Merrimack College, and Kristen got her master's degree from Merrimack College. Tyler obviously now works there. But I think being here at the youth center, getting the opportunity to work here and develop their skills, working skills, I think it has gone, and that's why they're so successful at what they do. Kristen as a teacher and Tyler at Merrimack College, they're very, very good at what they do. They care about what they do, and they like what they do. And I've always said, not only my kids, but anyone, pick something that you're going to like to do, right? And again, it can't always be about making the most money. You have to enjoy what you do for work. And I always told them, whatever you decide to do, make sure you're doing that, because you're going to do it for a long time. Right. And I think they've both done a great job. But I think having the opportunity here, developing some of those skills that they needed to move on was a big opportunity.
We're psyched to have seen their growth, and I do think that the youth center was a small part of their growth. Obviously, they came from a great family and extended family, and they grew a lot. But when I think about my summer programs, I can't not think about both of them.
I can't say though. I mean, they're both parents now, and I'm sure every parent is going to say this about their children, but they are fantastic parents. My mother says it all the time. Just watching them, and the nice thing today is you have that FaceTime. Yeah. So if my mother doesn't have an opportunity to see them in person, they FaceTime all the time, and they're just both great at what they do. Now, when we grew up, there wasn't these things about this nap at this time, and you have to do all this. And I tell them, neither one of you guys. If you fell asleep, you fell asleep. If you didn't, but they're on these different schedules of these Napster, but they're just great. They're loving being parents, and it makes Pam and I look and say, wow, we did something right, because they're great parents.
No, you definitely did. Knowing them, you and Pam, so much credit for that. Let's talk a little trivia question. Before the youth center was built, we were located in the white farmhouse on the second floor of the thrift shop, right next to the old red barn. And we were there up until we started the construction in 1999. But people don't know is I actually was on the second floor of where you and Pam at one point lived there. And how long did you guys live there?
We didn't live there long, but when we got married in 1986, we actually lived there for a little while, until we bought our first house. We bought our first house. It was a two-family with my two brothers in Lawrence in 1988. So Pam and I were there probably a year and a half, 2 years. And yeah, we lived on the second floor, and yeah, it was nice. And at that time, I worked at the station across the street.
Quick walk to work.
Quick walk to work, and but no, it was, and then obviously we had a fire a few years down the road in that building, and I was actually on duty that day.
Yeah, I want to talk about that a little bit when we get to that, because obviously I was here when that all happened, and it was a little bit emotionally tough for both you and Bill McAvoy. Let's talk about your different jobs with the fire department. So you started out as a firefighter, went to a lieutenant. What were some of probably the best things of the job that you liked over your career?
Well, the camaraderie of the firefighters, being part of it, it's a second family. You spend so much time together, so that you really these people became your brothers and sisters. And you know, I know when I first started, it was difficult because it was different. You know, going there and spending the nights there, the alarms coming in, and there used to be old bells, and they would go off. I always described it to people as have somebody come into your bedroom and just take pots and pans and just start banging them. That's how you would rise for the call. But you know, just getting out to the community, helping people, you know, meeting different people. You knew when you were called, people had an emergency, and you were there to go and help. And so that was always a good feeling. Obviously, the fire department, firefighters, we do see tragic things. We're going to places where people obviously need help, medical help, a fire. So we see people at their worst moments. We hope we make the difference, but again, we do see tragic things. At times it is difficult.
Yeah, I wanted to touch base, and you don't have to get into specifics, but as a fireman all the way up to being the fire chief, you've had to deal with some tough things. You've seen some deaths out of this. You've seen some horrendous fires. You've had to revive people that have overdosed and things. In the fire department, I don't think people have to do as much. They just think fighting fires, there's so much to do on that. How tough was the tough days?
I know there was times, and things bothered me, and I brought them home. You know, Pam could tell it was a tough day. You know, obviously going on calls, loss of life. You know, it's something that you hope you don't have to experience, but it happens. So it can be tough at times for all of us, but we're a tight group. If we have a tough call, we talk about it. If we need to do debriefing, we do that. So, you know, it's a great job, public safety. You know, I wouldn't have gone back and changed anything of what I've done. I've been blessed, I think, for my career. But again, it can be difficult at some of the incidents that we do have to go to.
Yeah. So not the worst experience you had, but I actually observed. So in '99, we were starting to build the youth center. And there was a fire that took place in the second floor of that building where the thrift shop was at. And you were one of the responding people. And I remember standing outside as the fire was blazing, and I put my arm around Bill McAvoy, and he was actually crying. And Obviously, I had an attachment because I had been in that building for 10 years, but I saw a guy that, he believed so much in that whole community center, thrift shop building and stuff. And you were one of the responding fires. Remember, I think you actually got smoke inhalation when you were in there. What was it like? I actually looked at you too. It was almost like you guys saw a piece of the history of North Andover burning up. What was that like that day?
Yeah, I just remember, when I arrived saying, geez, I used to live there.
Right.
And fire started, I think, between the first floor ceiling and actually got up into the second floor apartment. It did help me living there.
You knew where everything was.
Even though I couldn't see because of the amount of smoke, I knew my way around. So it did help me. We were able to, obviously knock the fire down. I remember finding in the closet a bunch of the basketballs that we would use for Saturday. So again, there was a lot of history up there, a lot of Bill McAvoy's photos and a lot of history, things like that. So it was, it's always tough to see a part of North Andover's history, especially something that I was so close to, have that type of incident. So
yeah, I still have memories of that building. Obviously, we love this building here and what this has become, but that was a tough day for all of us to kind of go through on that. So you and I, EJ Folds, there's only a few of us that have actually worked, still working, that have worked for every town manager North Andover had. I started with the first one, Paul Sharon, and obviously you were on the department at that time. How is this present? Obviously, we work for Melissa Rodriguez right now, and D. Casey's our deputy. How is this regime different than maybe the past? And how's it been for you to work for all the different type of town managers?
So I knew all the town managers, but as chief, I really only worked with Andrew Mailer and then now Melissa Rodriguez. I knew Mark Reese pretty well, so I did have some, even as a lieutenant, there was times that...
He also coached his son in basketball, too.
Did I there back then?
Oh, no, Peter Breen did.
Oh, Peter Breen.
Okay.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, honestly, I've enjoyed working for both. I enjoyed working with Andrew, having the meetings every 2 weeks with department heads, and then you would go down and, you had a... As well as with Melissa, you have to show why you might need what you're asking for. But with Andrew, we were able to expand the fire department as far as we got a full-time EMS coordinator position, which we didn't have, and we were one of the first in the area to get that position. And so important because 65% of what we do is EMS. And then when Melissa came in, I sat with her and I told her where the fire department, some of the things that we need to be moving towards, and we were able to put on 4 additional lieutenants that we were able to staff the ladder truck with. So both of them were very pro public safety. And again, we all realize we have to live within our means, but I've enjoyed working with both of them. And Melissa she's a lot of fun. Very outgoing and has a lot of stories, and I do run into her a lot at Market Basket.
Yeah, because she lives in Danvers and you guys shop down.
So.
Yeah, I mean, both of them very different, but really, really strong leaders on that. Talk to me a little bit about that. You've been the chief in 2 of the biggest incidents we've had. Obviously, the gas crisis. And then obviously, the pandemic. And when I had Melissa Rodriguez on my podcast, she basically talked about how you and Chuck Gray and Paul Hutchins need vacations more than anybody because it's really been nonstop for a couple of years now. As the fire chief, what's it been like dealing with both the gas crisis and the pandemic?
Well, I know a lot of the members of the department have always said, "Oh, Chief, a lot's happened in these years since you've been chief." Kind of when I started out a deputy, we had a serious incident at one of the plants we had up in our industrial park where there was an explosion and 4 people were seriously hurt. So that's how it started for me. Columbia gas incident, the crisis happened. Pam and I, obviously, and I think you're aware of this, that we had just left for our anniversary.
Yeah,
32nd.
you were in Ireland, right?
No, we're actually in Jamaica.
In Jamaica.
And we just got there, started getting the
I know
phone.
police grade, chief grade does not let you forget.
He does not let me forget that. That was a tough time for me, knowing what was going on and really not being able to do anything. But as soon as I get the phone calls, I went down to make a flight downstairs, and I got back to the room. Pam had the bags packed. She knew we had to go.
Right.
So it was difficult. I didn't get back until late that Friday night, but spent the next 30 hours at the station. There was so much to do, and for that next year, it was like working 2 full-time jobs, managing the fire department, but working on the restoration of the gas incident. There was so many things. People were without heat, hot water. We had daily meetings with the area fire chiefs. We met regularly with the governor. The governor was fantastic. He was here almost every day in the beginning. We would have meetings, but there was a lot that was asked of the fire chiefs. We had to make some very important decisions about how to replace what we were going to be replacing in homes, and so we had a lot of input into that. And the days were long. It was weekends. I remember working on this on weekends, making phone calls, working with both the gas company and the electric company, and and again, it's not over for us. We've seen an increase in calls for gas calls, but as tragically it was, there has been tremendous amount of improvements that we see today. How we respond and how the current gas company responds. We have a very, very good relationship with Eversource. But that, and then we went right into COVID.
Yeah.
And I know that affects everybody in the world. And
but you guys are responding.
well, we're responding. It was obviously different. We had to, get the proper PPE. At that time we had PPE, but not probably what we needed, and I think people saw that everywhere, where hospitals were running short, and but again we dealt with it. We did have to make some changes, some new ways that we're responding, and I actually had to separate the stations in the beginning, try to keep stations separate, so if we did have an outbreak, it wouldn't have affected the second station. So there was some things that we had to think a lot about, and not only keep the fire department in business and being able to go out but make sure that we're protecting the public. So there was a lot. So it's been a busy few years here for public safety.
Yeah, I mean, you guys have done a phenomenal job. I think the police department also, what you guys have done as a response has been incredible. What would you say your biggest accomplishments has been as a chief? Is it those 2 incidents and dealing with those 2 type of incidents?
I'm happy how we all performed during those incidents. Again, I can't say enough for the firefighters on my department.
Absolutely.
During the Columbia Gas. What they did that day was unbelievable, and they had to wait for help to come. But just how they've responded during the COVID, tremendous. My whole thought about coming in as chief was just try and leave the place a little bit better than when you came in. So
do you feel like you've accomplished that?
Yeah, I mean, there's so many things that I would love to keep doing. And again, it's going to be difficult for me to retire. I mean, it kind of hit me the night that they made the selection. Lieutenant John will be the new fire chief starting July 1st. And I realized at that point, I am leaving. I'm not going to be the fire chief. But I do think I'm comfortable that I'm leaving the place in a good place. We're able to, again, add some positions. I think we're more effective, more efficient, safer for the firefighters. We're able to get some grants for gear. When I came in, everybody had one set of turnout gear. I was able to get gear, so now every firefighter has 2 sets of gear, so in the event of a fire, they're able to take that off, put it through the cleaning process, through the washer and dryer, and because we're very conscious of cancer in the fire service.
Sure.
So I have a great group of people that I've worked with. So
let's talk about that a little bit. So, you and I our careers have mirrored each other, and so we're on the older end. And when I look at the fire department right now, I'm blown away with how many firemen and firewomen actually were YC kids at one point. But who were the closest people that you had on the fire department that probably maybe came in when you came in?
So when I started on the fire department in 1986, I knew a lot of them. My lieutenant, I spent summers at his house because I played baseball with his son. It was Ken Long.
Okay, Ken, yeah.
And so I knew Lieutenant Long growing up. And one of the high school classmates of mine that I hang out with, his father was a firefighter. I went into the fire department calling people Mr.
Yeah.
Because that's how I knew them. It was difficult for me to call them by their first name. And, Bill McAvoy was a firefighter.
Yeah.
And great relationships that I still have with a lot of the retirees today. I came in with Bob Bonifant. He just retired a few years ago before me. Jimmy Crane.
Yeah.
Jimmy Crane, I just saw him the other day at the memorial service. He comes in occasionally. I see him. We talk on the phone. Bernie Judge comes in. Ronnie Fountain, who's a retired. So we have a lot of firefighters that have had some good long retirements, and that's what it's about. You're hoping that people retire and they're able to go out and have a good retirement. But I love seeing the new people coming in. We're hiring 7 new firefighters.
Yeah.
5 are starting June 14th, and then 2 more will be starting in the beginning of July. Last year we hired 3. Our fire department is very young and very new.
Yeah.
But again, I COVID probably took a little bit away from all of us. I didn't spend as much time as I would like to, probably going to the other station. I used to like to stop there, have a coffee on my way. I'm starting to do that again, but
right.
At that time I was trying to, manage the departments, keeping as much people separate as possible. It's been tough for the firefighters. I've asked them, not only are we wearing masks in the trucks and on calls, we were wearing them on the station if we couldn't socially distance. So we've asked a lot of all of them. It's been hard on them too, and I know it's hard on everybody. Everybody's experiencing this, but we're turning the corner on it. I see a bright future for the fire department. It's a great group, and I'm happy I'm leaving it in a good place.
Without a doubt, and I love a lot of the seeing all the new young firefighters there. It's just pretty impressive. I think the future's really bright here in North Andover with both our fire department and the police department. One of the things I was always intrigued about you when I met you back in '88, there was this thing called the father and son camping trip every summer. And your kids were really young at that point. But then when all of you had kids working for me during the summer, I always had to schedule something they could leave early for father-son camping trip. And it's amazing that, prior to COVID, you guys continue to do this. And I think we're in the next generation now, too. Tell folks a little bit about that, a famous father-son camping weekend.
So we started that. It was actually 4 fathers that started it originally, myself and Tyler. John McElhenney, who has passed away a few years ago.
Sure.
His son
both
Kevin and Danny both worked.
Danny worked for me.
Yeah, and Sean Conway, who was a retired police lieutenant from Lawrence.
Yeah.
And the other one, the first year was, so it was me, John Dickie Valancourt. How could I forget? Dick Valancourt.
Selectman.
And his son Ricky. So that was the first 4. The second year, EJ was supposed to come, but he was at the police academy, EJ Folds. So his EJ and his son Eric came the second year, and Lenny Degnan ended up coming the second year. And it's just grown from 8 that first year, and we've been up to 32, 36 people. We've had a variety of other fathers, some brothers, some cousins, and so we've been doing that. Last year was the first year we were not able to do it because of COVID. So we had gone, Tyler was 4 years old the first year we went, and Tyler's 28 now. So last year was the first year we missed that. And we go up to Maine. We've gone to the same, it's Lake St. George. It's about a 2.5 hour ride up. We stop. We eat well. We have menus all planned, and everybody helps out with the cooking and the cleaning. Some guys have some pop-up trailers. Others are in tents. But we've been doing it. We've had boats. We've done tubing. So and then we have activities. We have cornhole tournaments, 45 tournaments. We go golfing now. We have a father-son golf trip while we're up there. So it's a lot of fun. Did I think it was going to go this long? No, but we do have Dick's Valacourt's son Ricky. His son came up just for a few hours. Ricky's wife brought him up. So, but so that was the first grandchild.
It's still an incredible story. I love hearing about it. Obviously, all of them, all the kids of all your friends have all worked for me, and they would tell wonderful stories about this. So I hope that continues.
Yeah, we're all scheduled to go. We're going July 20, the end of July, last weekend of July. So
and maybe at some point they'll roll you in a wheelchair, but you'll still be going.
Yeah, we'll still be going. Yeah.
All right, I got a few more questions for you, and then we'll let you out of here. What do you think the future holds for the North Andover Fire Department?
I think it's bright. I think, obviously you have to be willing to change as times change and adapt to, whatever's coming out there. But I know the current town manager and deputy town manager are very pro-public safety. They understand the needs of the fire department. We have a good leader in John Weir. He's gonna make a great chief. The additional officers. There's a plan in place to hopefully get a stronger command structure. But the town's growing. They're going to have to look at needs of at some point maybe a third ambulance. The ambulance does over 3,000 runs a year, and the town, like I said, is growing. But it's a great group of people. They work hard, very well educated. A lot of us have degrees in fire science, a lot of them professional development, always out training, whether it's at the fire academy or the training indoors. So I think the town can feel comfort knowing that, in the event they need the North Andover Fire Department, they're going to get a good response. So.
Awesome. What would you say to, so if we can go back, you and I are dinosaurs now, but if you could go back to a 20-year-old Bill McCarthy, with what you know now in your late 50s, what would you say to that young Bill McCarthy now?
I wouldn't change anything I've done. I think I've been pretty lucky in my life. And I've said this to people, I've said it to Pam, that a lot of things have fallen in place for me. You have to work for them, obviously. But I just, whether it was buying my house when we did, or, the children that I have, or the job that I got, or again, there's so many people each year that, want to be a firefighter, a lot of it's timing, whether it's openings or how well you do on the exam, and same thing with getting promoted. It's whether there's jobs or not. Did you do well on the exam? So I wouldn't change anything I've done. I took my father's advice. Take these exams, and they can always offer you a job. It doesn't mean you have to take it. But I knew it's what I wanted to do. I didn't see myself really doing anything else. I knew it was going to be something in public safety. So, looking back, I would tell myself the same thing. Work hard. Don't give up. Keep reaching for your goals. And I really think that I've met a lot of my goals. I say it. My life has been blessed. And again, have we had tragedies? Everybody does in their families and things. But I look back and I'm looking forward to the future.
Yeah.
I'm looking forward to spending time with my grandkids. I mean, that's the big reason. Not only do I have the years on the department, it's I'm at that point where I have so many years, but I told both Tyler and Kristen, once you guys start having children, I'm going to be there for you guys, and I'm looking forward to it. I'm looking for the next part of my life. So.
I mean, the other thing that I would say that we've kind of mirrored in our lives a little bit, and I think this is what I would want to bring across to the young people, is we both were never afraid to work 2 jobs, and we were never afraid to give back to the community. So I have a memory of you, which probably only went up until recent years, that when you weren't working, I saw you working with your brother's landscaping company.
Right.
I look at his days off, he's cutting grass. I know my days off were training basketball or something like that. And then the other thing is you showed beyond belief about giving back to your community. And I know you're not involved with the Boosters Club now, per se, you're a past president, but you gave so much of your time to that, and you continue to give to this community that means so much to you. So I think that's also a message to young people too, is don't be afraid of hard work, and don't be so busy that you can't give back to your community, because I think that's what makes North Andover as special as it is. Let me give you the final word. What would you say to anybody? Our listeners will age from pretty much our high school kids through people all the way up to your mother's age or whatever. What's one last word Bill McCarthy wants to say to the town of North Andover as he slowly heads into the sunset?
Well, I'm going to be around. I have no plan on moving out of North Andover. I love it. I could see myself, getting involved in some type of community type service. I'll be around. I've enjoyed it. I've enjoyed the opportunity that has been given to me. I've enjoyed meeting. I mean, that's one of the greatest things about this job and some of the other things that I've done in town as far as Booster Club. And I've had the opportunity to form relationships with people that, I'll always have. I've really, again, I love living here. My whole family's here, even my 2 children. They're only the next town over. So it's been an honor to serve the town. I do, when I say it, I appreciate the opportunity that I've been given, and but I'll be around. They'll see me.
Yeah, we're looking forward to 2 things. Like I miss when Tyler and Michael were playing together for that 5-year period. I used to see you in my office on Monday mornings breaking down the games that took place during the weekend. So I'm hoping with your free time you can swing by here and we can relive and yuck it up with some stories on that. And the other thing is you have promised that we are going to be reliving our yearly trip to Maine for the Boosters Club, which was a pub crawl in a lot of ways and a lot of good memories. People don't even know we were so stubborn about this that we went up in a limousine during a blizzard because we were not going to miss that trip to Maine. So I've talked to a lot of the fellas, and we're hoping to bring that Maine trip back too. So Billy, it has been an absolute pleasure to be your friend, work with you as a peer, obviously different departments, but we connected in so many different ways. And it was such a thrill, having your kids work for me, and you have done an unbelievable job for our community. Folks, he's only got about a couple of weeks left, so I wish you all could wish him the best of luck, but I do agree with one thing you said. You're not going anywhere. You'll be around. We'll still see you. You'll probably be volunteering at voting or maybe town meeting or something. But
I'll be a vote counter.
Yeah. So again, Bill, thanks for coming on the Youth Centered podcast.
Thanks, Rick. I appreciate it.